Well, good afternoon. Happy Friday. I'm glad to see some of y'all's faces. I have a small screen, so I can only see a few of you. So I see Paige and hey, Carrie Wright and Norm. Good. Wayne. Thanks all for making time to join us today for our first quarter 2023 outreach trainer webinar with a few updates for you all. And since you're here, that means you must have a up-to-date email in the system, because we were able to get you notification that we were having a outreach webinar. So that is good stuff. Welcome. I know that we've got Angenique and I know Yvonne is on her way to join us. So if you've got questions, throw them in the chat. Put your hand up. We're recording this too, so we'll be able to make the video available later if you want to come back and look at anything, because I'm going to point out a few items that you might want to be able to go back and click the hyperlink on, or look at and grab the photo again, that type of thing. So give me a thumbs up or thumbs down on slow down, speed up, pause. This is for you all. That's why we do these. So want to entertain your questions too. And we've made opportunity, I think, to be able to do that this go around. Hopefully you're seeing the screen that I'm sharing with our introduction, and I got to get on the PowerPoint, and then we'll be able to advance it. All right. So some of you might be brand new outreach trainers. You've just completed your OSHA 500, for example, with Philip, and this is your very first outreach trainer webinar. So welcome to you. And if I didn't make it up to your 500 class, or pop in during that time to say hi, just a quick intro. I'm Hillary Warren, the director of the OSHA Training Institute here at Georgia Tech. If you took your 501, then you probably know my face, because I was your instructor in that class as well. But that's my contact info. It's on and everywhere, spread around. So you're welcome to reach out at any point and let me know if there's things that you want to discuss individually. Other items for contact info. Again, all of this is typically on all of your course agendas, and it's on the website, but it's always good to just put it back in front of you again. A reminder of our Rockstar team, our outreach coordinator, Yvonne Jones. Most of you know her well and communicate with her. Here, the items that are listed here, just as a reminder, are some of the things that she'll handle for you as the outreach coordinator. Angenique Walker, most of you have, heard, met, had a audit request from her. Her contact is there, and she manages all of the coordination for the actual courses that take place at Georgia Tech. We have a brand new assistant to our team, Shonda Madison. Joined us at the beginning of December. She's crushing it, and she's sitting here in the room with me, so excited to have her with us. She's getting onboarded certainly with how our classes run and that sort of thing. But if you find yourself in need of a course certificate, a copy of something that you've misplaced, she can help direct that, get you squared away, either in finding your transcript and accessing that, or getting a replacement certificate. And Dana, most of you, you would have taken classes with him, 511 or others. He's also still coordinating some of our audits and on-site observations. Right now, to initiate communication with us, the best way to do that is through an email, okay? And you can email any of us individually, or you can email that training card requests email that's showing up here on your screen. Notice the little S on the end. It's not request, it's requests, plural, because all of the requests and inquiries go there. So if you would just pop in the subject, I forgot my password, or I need a password reset, or I'm locked out of the portal, or I'm having trouble, I don't know where my cards are. Put that in the subject. Certainly that's monitored, and in many instances, you're going to get a call back. But the best time to do, best way to coordinate that right now is to put in what time is good for us to reach out to you, and include a phone number, so that we can hopefully minimize the amount of back and forth. We want to get to you as just, as quickly as we can. But, I think we've gotten some feedback. Hey, we really missed, there's not a phone number to, contact you guys anymore. And it's because we're sort of spread out and there's not a direct line. And yeah, we've got phone forwarding and all of that. But if I asked Yvonne to just answer the phone all day, then that's what she would do. And so what I'd rather do is coordinate good times for her to reach back to you in everybody's schedule. So go ahead and try to set that up. Just initiating contact with us via email first. All right. Let's see. So today, stuff to cover with you all in our hour together. Just a reminder on code of conduct, updates for the upcoming 502 and 503 classes, as well as some other ones that I want to draw your attention to. So additional learning opportunities. There's some new things on OSHA's regulatory agenda that I just wanted to, draw your eyes to and know where to find more info. If you're like me, I sort of at the beginning of the year start looking back at my course curriculums and things like that and determining where do I want to make updates? Is there new data to put in to bring things into the current year? So I just wanted to throw a little bit of that at you. And some reminders around the portal and the advanced notification process, what that looks like, why we do it, that type of thing. And then there's a bunch of things that I won't go into detail on because I want to make sure that we entertain questions if you've got some, but that would be my encouragement to you is to look at the slides, look at the deck after class, our seminar is done, and review some of those resources that I'm going to include for you at the end. Okay. All right. So I just want to throw it out there to remind everybody about the code of conduct, the outreach trainer code of conduct that you all, sign and agree to and did agree to when you became outreach trainers as a whole, and then specifically for Georgia Tech. And that, I'm really proud and glad to say, we get very minimal concerns or complaints from students, that have taken a 10 or 30 hour. We've got a really outstanding group of outreach trainers, and I really want to thank you all for your diligence and your professionalism in your conducting of these classes and getting cards to people in a timely manner and all that sort of thing. I do just want to highlight that one of the items that's at the bottom, though, is acting in a respectful manner to your students, your clients, and your ATO, right? And that means your ATO is us at Georgia Tech. And so where I want to highlight this is when you are going to take your 502 or your 503 and go back through that reauthorization process. Sometimes we're asking you for details on paper, right? That seem ridiculous to ask for because you're already an outreach trainer and you've kind of already jumped through certain hoops before. There's a process that we have to follow. There's a process that we get audited on by OSHA. And when we're asking you for certain documentation, it's not because we like paperwork, it's because we need to have some of those criteria that we're asking for. So just try to sort of keep that in mind and know that we have deadlines that we have to adhere to as well. So the timeliness component is important. And we appreciate your patience with us and we hopefully extend that to you as well. The goal here is for everybody to be successful. So to highlight that, especially for those of you that might be coming into your need for a reauthorization cycle here pretty soon, the process for applying for the 502 or 503 is here on the screen. So that prerequisite verification form, a big old document you had to fill out back when you applied to be an outreach trainer that first go around. This time, you only have to do the first page, right? Tell us what dates you're planning on attending and, your current contact info, that kind of thing. And then sign that last page. There's only one page in that whole beast of a document where it asks for a signature. You have to sign that and include it with that first page, along with your trainer card, copy of your trainer card, okay? In order for that to be a complete application. So if you only uploaded a copy of your trainer card and sent that to us when you said, this is the class I want to take, then we can't process that application until we get page 1 and page 5 back from you. Okay. The whole thing has to be complete before we can put eyes on it. And so every time we get an application that's missing any of those items, it gets delayed, right? It's delayed on your end, it's delayed on our end. And then we get into this, sort of frantic mode of trying to make sure we get you into the class that you're applying for, because we want to make sure you get in before you expire. So just everybody, slow down when you're on the website and you're reading through the instructions. Make sure okay, do I have all of the items that they're asking me for? First page, 5th page that's signed, and a copy of my trainer card. Okay. If you expire, okay, if you're expired and you're asking for an opportunity to take the 502 or 503, then that's a whole nother conversation and a whole nother set of documents that we've had to go through with a number of you. But if you're prior to your expiration date and you're ready to go, this is all you've got to do. Okay. But all of those items have to be submitted together at the same time. All right. The other thing I want to highlight for you and why that is so important that you got all of those documents and submit them as one package is because registration for a 502 or a 503 is going to close the Wednesday before that class starts. Okay. So when we say that PE closes registration, that means the seats are done. You have to have been approved and you need to have come back and paid for your class by that Wednesday midnight deadline. If that hasn't happened, then we have to engage in a process with Georgia Tech PE about reopening registration, sending you a special link, et cetera. And we will do that. And we have been doing that because we want to make sure that you get into the class that you need to and not expire as a trainer. But I do want you to understand that every time it's delayed, especially because it's an incomplete application, it pushes us closer and closer to this deadline for when registration gets cut off. And then it just creates additional work for you, for us, and for PE registration here. So plan to look at the dates that are coming up on a subsequent slide and say to yourself, okay, if this is when this class is, this is when I need to be having my application in and have it be approved, and I need to have paid to secure my seat. Okay. I'm going to reiterate it again, but there's no grace period. All right. That grace period that OSHA used to give trainers expired back in 2019. Okay. So it's multiple years now. And this is where, we'll start to get a little bit of pushback from trainers, not real happy with the rules. And I get it. It's super frustrating. If you've missed that update and, you just didn't know, or forgot, whatever it is. I empathize, I commiserate. I also can't do anything about it. Okay. It is what it is. They removed that expiration grace period. And so if you expire, okay, if you're past your date, then you have to take the 500 or the 501 again. And if it's been more than 7 years since you took your 510 or your 511, your initial standards class, whether it was with us or a different ed center, that also has to be repeated. Okay. So there's reasoning for that. And most people, honestly, who have ended up, I had 4 or 5 people in this week's 510 who missed it. And they had to retake it. And there was, initial grumbling in the beginning. And at the end, every single one of them said, it'd been over a decade since I took that 510. And there's been some changes for sure. And it was worth the time. I wasn't happy with myself that I missed that date and I had to redo it. But there's new information and it was good. And it helps level the playing field again. Okay. So just, again, that's the rule. We didn't make the rule. We've certainly given OSHA a lot of feedback about this change that they made in 2019, and you're welcome to do so as well. But that's currently how it stands. So make sure that you're paying attention to the date of your trainer expiration. Okay, so how do you do that? Where do you find that information? Okay, it's on your card. Okay, it is on your card. It's also in the portal. Okay, in your trainer profile, it'll have your expiration date listed. And so while we're talking about the portal real quick in your profile, if you have not logged in to use your portal ever before, take time to do that. If you are having difficulty with getting into it, you can drop that in the chat even if you want to. And I know that Yvonne will be, taking notes from the chat to see who she needs to reach out to. It's the what's the word? The criteria that's used for logging into the portal is your email address. Okay, that's your sort of how they, I don't know what the word is, how they identify you, basically, is how that portal is set up, is through your email. So if you no longer have access to the email that you originally gave us, right? You put in an employer's a company email that you hadn't had access to because you changed jobs or whatever, you're not going to be able to get into the portal. And so what you'll need to do is contact our program through the items that I've detailed here in this box. Provide, a subject line saying profile update, and give your name and the telephone number, and you will be contacted so that we can get your new email loaded into your profile so that then you can actually access the system. Okay, no problem in getting you reset. It's just we have to do that because that's the field that's used to give you access into the portal, period. All right, so here on the slide, and I think Angenique is also dropping into the chat for you the link to Georgia Tech Professional Ed to show you all of the upcoming 502 and 503 dates for this coming year. We've got them happening in Savannah, Atlanta, and online. Remember, you don't have to wait until the last day, last week, last month to retake it. If you are looking at those dates and you're like, okay, I expire in May, but I don't want to take an online class, then plan to take it in Savannah in February, or take it in Atlanta in March, right? You don't have to wait until you're literally in your last 11th hour. All right. The other thing I would just note about those dates is that if your card says, for example, hey, you're going to expire on June 7th, as long as you are in that class, the one that says June 6th through 8th, you're fine, you're covered. Okay, so you can expire while you're in the class. You just need to be in the class. The other thing that people I think forget is that you can always reauthorize using the 500 or the 501. Yes, it's a longer class, there's a test, there's a presentation, right? But you can reauthorize that way if for whatever reason the dates didn't work out for you, or you ended up with a conflict and you had planned to do it, but then something comes up from a work perspective or travel, and suddenly you're like, ooh, that's not going to work. But otherwise, how else am I going to do it? Because you've already finished all your other 502s or 503s for that month. Well, then if you don't want to have to, expire and then deal with the sort of 510, 511 redo for some of you, then just go ahead and plan to take the 500, 501. Okay. This is a really busy slide. You don't need to read all of it. I've cut and pasted our form now that we have started implementing, mostly because I just wanted to have some discussion with you all for a second. This is the bullets that you see here are items that we're now posing to folks that sign up to take an online class with us. So if you decided you wanted to take your virtual 502 or 503 in this next year, one of the things that you will fill out in order to take that class will be sort of a code of conduct for online classes. And forms most of the time are generated because something happened where these items were violated, right? And so we're trying to sort of formalize the expectation setting around what does it mean to take an online class? Please don't be driving your car and signed into the Zoom. Like we have to say those types of things. And that I promise that I actually will be there and I'll have my video on the whole time. That's the expectation that OSHA has for the education centers. If they're allowing us to conduct online classes, there are rules that they set for us to do that. And one of them was, you can't have people sit there on a Zoom call with their videos off. Right. So when I have classes and that's what people are doing, that's jeopardizing our ability as an ed center to be authorized to run online classes. So if you've got to turn it off because you're going to blow your nose, or you're going to, you got to go and call your dog in, or you go to the bathroom. Like, obviously there are times when stuff is distracting and you don't want a video on, but you have to be present. And that, that's the expectation, and we're setting it up front. So I wanted to just pause for a second and ask the group, do you all, whether you're one of the ones that I've approved to do an online class, some of you are doing outreach classes online, or just your regular classroom settings. I just, there's folks who've been trainers for a long time on this call and folks that might be really new. And I was curious if we could dialogue for just a second on, do any of you all have best practices for setting, sort of a code of conduct or expectation that you would want to share with the group? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to.
Hillary, this is John Williams. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say I'm here, but I'm having video issues. I didn't want to try to log out and miss anything, so I'm sorry.
Nope, glad to have you.
Okay.
Anybody got anything they want to share?
Well, Hillary, I've done a couple of them. Norm Smith. Like you, I used your methodology for the online reauthorizations and the same criteria. And I start off the class with that. I also, in my correspondence prior to the class, I clearly define that expectation that you need to be on camera. You need to be on camera the whole time. And there's a number of times where I will have coworkers or students that I know well, have them monitor the video for me because I'm focused elsewhere during the course of that instruction to ensure that they are keeping an eye on and participating. And you can often see without a doubt if somebody is paying attention. Yes, there's always going to be those cases of oddball distractions. You'll see somebody answering a question from a coworker in the office.
Sure.
I encourage them to take the course away from the workspace, away from the office, and away from distractions. But invariably, you're still going to run into those. But I try and keep them engaged in that as much as possible, mixing things up. Sometimes also calling on individuals in the class with questions direct helps out. Those are techniques that I've used.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing, Norm, that sort of direct call on people, right? And still the same responsibility of reading the room, as an instructor as we have when we're in the classroom of like, okay, well, I know my agenda says this, but when I start to see people, struggling to stay awake or focused, maybe it's time to do something else, right? Get up, move around, do a poll, do something. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that, you have an expectation that you are setting at the beginning of class, but also in your pre-course communication. I think that is really important. And, and I think it's similar when we're in person, actually doing a class with live bodies in the classroom. It's, what are those expectations mean? Sometimes for regular job site training, people are used to maybe drifting in and out of whatever room it's being conducted in. But when we're doing our 10 or 30 hours, right, we know we're obligated to make sure that people are actually present for those 10 hours or those 30 hours. And so how do you control that and manage that environment? So yeah, thanks for the feedback. Anybody else have any
Hillary?
best practices they want to share before they move on?
Yeah, Hillary.
Yeah.
Mitchell Kemp here.
Hey, Mitchell.
How are you?
Good.
Very much what Norm said about sending out because primarily my sessions recently have been virtual. So communications by email, setting the expectation that they have to have video, etc. But then the other thing is even if they have, like, John Williams and some of them, sometimes you have on remote, you have video problems, but I make use of the poll system in Zoom to where, to keep them engaged, but also from my standpoint, documenting the fact that they haven't just left the camera and gone away for the rest of the day, kind of thing. So
Right. No, that's great. Good. Thank you for that feedback. Appreciate y'all. All right. Let's see. Come on, mouse. Back on here. There we go. Okay. All right. So, other updates for you, learning opportunities for you, things that I wanted to just make sure we highlighted, beyond the 502, 503 updates, where most of the time the focus is on, here's some of the new things that OSHA's, got to say. Let's have some talk, conversation around things that OSHA isn't talking about, but that are still really pertinent and relevant to the, safety and health profession. Talking about mental health or fatigue management, right? All of those types of things I know have been some of the content that has been in recent 502, 503s. I just wanted to highlight a couple of classes for you. One would be the advanced safety management class, which will run in May. Philip with ProSafe, who runs the 500 and the 502. So most of you are real familiar with him. Him and others from ProSafe typically run that particular class, and it's been revamped a little bit in this past year. Honestly, if you took it, 7 or 8 years ago, it might even be worth taking again, because there's a lot more now integrated with human performance and sort of managing the mental load and how does that all sort of translate into leadership, et cetera. So it's a really good course. I'm sure there's folks that are on here that could attest to that. But we do have an upcoming offering in May. The EST 7003, which is the best practices for safety, health, and environmental trainers. That class used to be called like instructional techniques, I think, but it also has undergone a revamp in the past year. It's a little bit shorter, a little bit different activities, but a really good class that takes you really from start to finish, including budgeting, how to develop really good test questions, how to develop, learning needs assessment, everything that we do in the 500 and the 501 in those sort of first couple of days around how do you train adults is expanded on in that particular course. And so the feedback's been really good about that course. So that'll be coming up in June. Encourage you to take that if you have time to. And then another one that we're bringing back online finally, which I'm excited about, is the EST 7015, which has got a long title called Value Added Safety, which is combining lean enterprise and safety management. And so for all of you who are familiar with, like 5S and, all of that kind of stuff, this is adding a 6S of safety and really looking at when we are not paying attention to safety and all of the outcomes, that's a waste, just like the wastes of, added movement and problems of housekeeping. It's like, so it's all about sort of taking those concepts of lean manufacturing, et cetera, and combining it together with how do we integrate safety into this process as well. It's a hands-on, really cool class that's co-taught between folks from the Georgia Manufacturers Extension Partnership group and our safety team. So that's it's been a while since we've been able to offer that class. So real excited that that'll be coming back in June as well. We also have all the free seminars planned for 2023. So those are here on the screen. We're doing something a little bit different this year. Instead of having them all in 1 week, all right, we're spreading them out and spreading out the way we're delivering them too. So hopefully it'll be able to fit into people's schedules a little bit better. So you can peruse this list. You can also scan that QR code that I put there at the top of the slide with your phone, and it'll take you to the page that's got all of the free seminars listed and the links to take you over to the Eventbrite page so you can register for a seat. But we're offering, several in Savannah. We're offering some virtually, and then we're offering some in person here in Atlanta as well. So the schedule is, we're starting them in March, and we'll conclude the last one in September. Maybe we'll sprinkle a few more in here throughout, but that's the existing plan. And so reminder, you can use one free seminar to add in as one of your electives if you're trying to pursue a certificate here at Georgia Tech, your industrial safety and health certificate, construction certificate, safety and health management certificate. You can use one of the free seminars. All right. You can attend for free if you want it added to your transcript, and if you want CEUs, which is important for some of you for certification maintenance, then there's a $25 fee because it's got to go through the registrar, and there's a little bit of work that has to take place. So it's $25, but otherwise you can certainly attend for free and get a certificate of completion. Okay. All right. So next little things I want to just go through. These slides are going to feel overwhelming because there's plenty there, but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on them. You can access this information real easy yourself at reginfo.gov, but I wanted to just pick out a few highlights that are relevant to safety and health that are part of OSHA's sort of regulatory agenda planning for 2023. So just a reminder of how that process works. They will publish twice a year, sort of the agenda and then the plan. And in the fall, that's really sort of when they release the details of the plan, like what's really included in it. So that's twice a year. And so what just came out, I've broken them into three categories. There's things that are going to be in final rule sort of stage. Then there's the sort of proposed rule stage, and then there's the longer term ideas. All right. So the stuff that's coming out that pertains to what we do in this next year would be final rule update to hazard communication. So that's expected to come out in March. Again, it's moving the regulation into line with where the GHS edition is currently. So there's some updates to that. And then the policies that OSHA has been basically enforcing around HAZCOM and GHS since 2012, right? When we've moved into this initial thing, they're actually going to codify those policies. So, sort of the way they've been doing business, but that hasn't actually been sort of explicitly written out. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be moved into codification of enforcement. All right. Another thing that's moving into final rule, and they're expecting this to come out next month, is retaliation for complaints under whistleblower protection statutes. And so here they're just looking to enhance the consistency among the statutes and make it more accessible for both employers and employees. So, again, these aren't like enormous things that are changing, but they may influence some of your materials or conversations that you have in class. So just wanted to highlight them for you. Again, you can go to reginfo.gov and then pull up the abstract, and it'll have the exact sort of details of these changes. The final rule for occupational exposure to COVID in healthcare, that was expected to come out in December. So since it's now almost the end of January, it hasn't yet, but it's still in final rule stage. Remember, final rule, like they had an emergency temporary standard, and that can't just go on and on endlessly. There's due dates by when OSHA has to take action after they issue an emergency temporary standard. So that final rule is supposed to be coming out, ASP. And then we've got the final rule for workplace injury. So all of your record keeping stuff, workplace injury and illness tracking, that is also planned to be published out in March. And so it's, that's gone back and forth. There's been a variety of, things that have been changed and modified over the past couple of years. And so now it's back to reestablishing requirements that existed previously for those who have employees exceeding 100, in a place to electronically submit those, and that they are re-reviewing the classification system for those covered industries for who would have to submit. Let's see. Oh, right. And there's this one I just thought was interesting. So in June, the plan for the final rule around administrative subpoenas that OSHA will does use heavily and still will use, but the goal here was to make it a little bit more transparent and uniform around how those subpoenas are used by OSHA. So when we're not complying with, an enforcement officer coming on site and they're getting a subpoena, like, what does that all look like? So some new changes around that particular one. Okay. Proposed rules, things that are coming out. I'm not going to go through each of these in detail. You can look at the list, but you can see that these are things that, again, so in the next year, OSHA is intended to take some action on, right? This is where they're in the stage of putting together the data and the information to make their case, right, for creating a new rule potentially, or really modifying a new rule. So PPE in construction, for example, one of those that will likely come out and be released, for additional comment, all of that and implementation. This is looking at just making PPE that's used in construction a little bit more diverse and able to fit more bodies, different sizes, women, right? Everything has sort of been very standardized to the male frame for a really long time. So looking at improving accessibility, that's a long time coming and should be coming soon. So there's a variety here that you can take a peek at as these things roll out. Obviously, this is the stuff that gets incorporated into a 502, 503 update, and things that we would try to include in a newsletter to you or in subsequent webinars, just to make sure that you all know some of the new things that are happening. Pre-rule stage, again, you can see some of the dates here for where they're starting to put together the case for a rule. So stuff changing around process safety management, power presses. They know that that's super outdated, right? Mechanical power presses. And so this past year, the public and others, manufacturers, submitted comments to OSHA, and now they're in the process of reviewing those. So they just started that review of all the commentary that came in. To the workplace violence and the heat illness in workplaces, both of those are now moving into sort of that small business review panel where they look at the economics of what that rule would do if implemented to the smaller businesses. So it's going through sort of that engagement process with small businesses, and those are sort of the big things that just came out, and I wanted to highlight them for you. I wanted to pause here and just see if anyone had anything new that they wanted to share from a cool new resource perspective they want to share with their fellow trainers. An example would be, I don't know how many of you follow online or have ever attended a talk by Linda Tapp. She runs Safety Fundamentals, right? And so she's always putting together, she's got a book and, does the conference circuit and talks to lots of folks. But if you follow her online in her newsletter, one of the things that she just put together and released publicly for people is a public Google Calendar that she's loaded in every month, significant historic dates related to things in the EHS profession. So, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire anniversary in March. The ones that she's, showing here on the slide. So you can scan that little QR code, or you can go to her site and, browse. But she's got a bunch of free downloads of really cool things, but I did add this to my calendar the other day. You know, it just gives you a, yeah, I want to see this public calendar, and it just added all of those dates directly to my Google Calendar. So now I know, hey, if I'm going to be talking to a group, or we're going to run a 10-hour class, you know, during this time frame, this is an interesting historical thing that we can have some conversation about. So that's one that I wanted to share with you. Has anybody else got any cool new resources or things they want to share with the group?
Super cool that Linda's doing that. This is Allison Short here.
Hey, Allison.
Hey, I was just gonna say too, if y'all haven't seen Ally Safety, I'll add a link in there. It's ALLY. So not me, but she's awesome. It's Rachel Walla. She's doing really cool videos that are really short. Some people can use them for like toolbox talks, and there's like some CEU options now that she's created. So it's a good resource that if you're like a consultant type person, that you can hand off to people as well. So I'll add that link in the chat.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for sharing. Good
Yeah.
to see you.
Good to see you too.
You're doing, hey, promote your what's the Safety Justice League
Oh
too
yeah,
stuff while
that's
you're
me
there.
too.
Come on now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we're like education adjacent, but we are the Safety Justice League podcast, and have some CEU options that are not currently active, but we're working on those for the next kind of season that I'm involved with now. So be on the lookout, listen to our podcast if you haven't done that yet.
Awesome. Great. Good stuff. We've got trainers doing awesome things. Thanks, y'all. Anybody else got anything they want to share?
Could you guys repeat that podcast again, please?
Yes, and we can drop it into the chat too.
Yes, I will do that. It is the Safety Justice League podcast, and I'll add a link here for you here shortly.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Allison.
Great. All right. Okay, so just a couple reminders and updates on portal questions. Again, if you've not been into the portal yet, because you haven't had to conduct a class, right? There's a lot of you who have not had to conduct a class. So you're like, okay, well, I took my class and I got my card and I'm good. But once you are ready, friends, to run your 10 or 30 hour, the first thing you're going to do is come to that outreach portal. And the very first time you try to access it, you're going to need to click that button that says follow this link. Okay. This is where that email address is so critically important. So the email that you provided to Georgia Tech Professional Ed when you registered to take your 500, your 501, your 502, or 503, that is the email that is used to create your profile here. So if you're like, oh, no, I don't want that email, that's when you're going to send a message to training card requests at innovate.gottech.edu and say, I need to update my profile with a new email so that I can get in. Okay. Then you will get a password, temporary, right? And then you will sign in. And so every time after that, you will just, have your email and your password, or save it like I do, right? And let yourself into the portal, okay? So other things to just keep in mind is that we at Georgia Tech require an advance notice of training for the 10 and 30 hours that you're going to conduct. So the way you do that is you log in, and then so at that top photo here, you can see this is what it looks like when you log in. You'll see these 3 photos. The first thing you'll do is click on the photo that says add outreach report. That's going to take you to this bottom screenshot. All right. And it'll say click here to submit your advance notice. And this will be, it'll change from that little arrow to, a hand, because it's going to be a hyperlink that you'll click. And that will take you to the page where you will input your advance notice. The reason we ask for an advance notice from everybody is just to sort of help us keep track of, who is doing what, where, and when. Part of that is because we have to do audits, right? That's part of our process that OSHA asks us to do, is both records audits as well as observational audits. So it helps us to know, do we have 3 trainings this month, or do we have 3,000 trainings this month that are potentially out there? So it just takes a second. You're not you're not wedded to it, right? It's subject to change. Things happen. I get it. There isn't a way to recall it. Once you put it in, it's in. If you know that something's going to change dramatically because of a date, you know, the dates are really different, that sort of thing, then you just go in and put in a new one. There isn't an edit feature. But they just get loaded into the system, all right? And we review them, but we don't approve them. All right. So we'll get calls or messages from people saying, I submitted my advance notice and I never heard back from you guys. Can I run my class? Yes, please run your class. All right. We don't approve them. There isn't a function for us to go in and say, you're good to go or you're not. All right. Just put it in. Tell us when you're conducting your class and how many people you think are going to be there. That's all that happens with the advance notice. Then you get to go and just run your class. The only caveat to that is if you are going to be like a couple of our friends on the call right now, like Mitchell, right, and Norm, they're running online 10 and 30-hour classes. In order for them to do that, they had to seek additional approval from us as an ed center. And so their advance notice process is just a little bit different because there's other things that have to be submitted if you're going to do it online. Otherwise, for everybody else doing it old school, just put the advance notice in. That's it. Okay. And you're good to go. You will know that you're on the right page, okay, for your advance notice if it looks like this, the one on the left that says advance notice. The thing that you're looking for says, right, that highlighted bit, add notification of training. And then also that instead of saying, how many students did you train? It's your estimated number of students, right? That means this is what you are thinking is happening in the future. If you don't see that and you're trying to put in an advance notice and it looks like this box over here on the right, where it has number of students and add outreach program report as the title, then you're on the wrong page. And it will not take the info that you're trying to put in because you're talking about something that is taking place in the future. Whereas this box over here on the right is expecting dates in the past. Okay, because you already conducted your trainings. That makes sense? Okay. Other things, I always just want to remind everybody every time you can upload your documents that you use, for your course, your agenda, your course agenda, your course sign-in sheets, your student contact info, like treat the portal now as a secondary home in the cloud for all of your stuff. So it's your backup. You got to keep all of those records for 5 years. And so this is an extra way to make sure that those documents are always going to be available. It's just if you've already PDF'd everything and you're scanning it into your own computer and files or, at your company, just take the extra step and do it here too. That way you've got everything sort of secondarily backed up. All right. Look, stuff happens. I always want to remind people we're not doing brain surgery. Okay. We are changing the world through the information that we're imparting to people, and what we do is really important work. But don't call and get mad at me or Yvonne about, certain things. We will make sure that you have success. All right. So patience, but also it's okay. You can admit it if you made a mistake. It's okay with me. It doesn't make you a bad trainer. I make mistakes, but don't hide it. Don't go and falsify records. Okay. Then I'm going to have problems with you. Don't be that trainer. Don't falsify anything. If you made a mistake, call and say, I forgot to do this, or I didn't turn this in on time, or whatever it is, we'll work with you to resolve it and make sure that the outcomes for you and your students are sort of where they need to be. Okay. All right. Keep all your stuff. That's all I'm going to say about that. Remember, 5 years is how long you're keeping it. I know there's plenty of people on this call that keep their stuff a whole lot longer. I have records from 10 hours that I did 10 years ago. I hold on to some of that stuff, but remember, you're only going to replace a student's card if they lose it, right? Or something happens within a 5-year period. So again, they don't expire but you can only request a replacement for that student within a 5-year period of time. One of the things that's really important, again, is just that while a lot of you might have folks that you have delegated responsibility to for entering stuff into the portal, all the student names and, scanning all your things in, which is amazing. If there's an audit or there's a complaint, that is you as the trainer's responsibility. So it doesn't matter if you third party it out to somebody else to handle your paperwork. It's still you who is going to get the request for proof of documentation, etc. So make sure that you're tracking what your people are doing if you're outsourcing some of that activity to other people. All right. Oh, and I would say that this last bullet on here, forgot that it was there. This is something that we get a lot of. I know it eats a lot of Yvonne's time, is that we will get students who will contact us, people who have taken a 10-hour or taken a 30-hour, and they will contact us and say, I had a class, I lost my card, I don't know who my trainer was, right? Who can reissue the card? Who can replace the student card? That's you, the trainer. You have to request that. So that request really needs to come for a replacement card through you, not from the student. But if the student doesn't know how to contact you, then they are like, well, I do remember him saying something about Georgia Tech, or, have some document that indicates that, or their company is able to tell them, oh yeah, we brought in some, trainer who was authorized through Tech or whatever. Just think about how long it might be till students get their cards from you, or the circumstances that they're in while you're training them, and make sure that they understand sort of that process of how do they get a replacement card if they ever need one. It's through you, their trainer. All right. I will show you where this is on the page instead. All right. Last couple of things. I'm hoping that you saw this in the newsletter, or maybe you got an email about it post-class recently. But if you have not yet seen the short survey that we have been administering to our outreach trainers, please take a moment. It really will only take a moment for you to do that today. And they're specific. So there's one code that's for those of you that have been an outreach trainer for more than 4 years. And then there's a code on the right-hand side that's for those of you who have been outreach trainers for less than 4 years. We're looking at, items that we might be able to services and items, things like that we'd like to pursue making available for outreach trainers to just be better supports for you, and still want to get your input on that before we start chasing the wrong rabbit. So you can either grab the links here, you can scan it with your phone. It's set up for a mobile answering. We'll just take a couple of minutes, and we'd certainly appreciate your feedback. Okay. Angenique's putting the actual links into the chat if you don't want to do it with your phone, but you'd rather grab the hyperlink and then put it into a browser, you're welcome to do that. Let's see. And so the last bit, I'm not going to go through any of it, but just know that there's a variety of slides that are here at the end, more reminders about how to on the portal, some additional trainer reminders, what are the records I'm supposed to be keeping? What do we usually find during audits? That sort of thing. And then a whole bunch of training resources, links, apps, some other items that you might find useful in updating your content. And one of them here, I'm just going to skip, is to just make sure you know that the new FY 2022 OSHA's most frequently cited by subpart has been released. They always do it in the late fall. And so that came out after our last session together. So I just wanted to make sure all of those slide decks are available for you to download on our oshainfo.gottech.edu page. Both construction, general industry, and maritime are there. So you can look at all of those most frequently cited by subparts. And I think that was the main thing. Like, as you can see, I put a lot of resources in there for you to use. join us online on LinkedIn, sign up for the newsletters if you don't get them already. We've been doing some interesting blog posts with interviews with different people. And if you've got ideas, shoot them our way. We're happy to, expand and incorporate as much as we can to meet some of your needs. I think that's it. This is coming. The update to the procedures document and the requirements documents. I expect that it will come out probably maybe towards the summer. So we'll let you know when that finally hits publication, but it's coming at some point soon. I think that's it. Want to make sure I pause so that we've got enough time to address stuff in the chat. And any other questions that people have? Or Yvonne and Janique, anything that you all want to chime in with, share items? Let's see. I'm going to go up in the chat and see if there was anything. Thanks, Allison, for dropping all that in there. Right, we'll get the PowerPoint PDF'd and posted to the website. And then once this recording is done and put into YouTube, we'll get a link to host that so that you can rewatch if you need to. And I know that I've got a couple of direct messages, so I will look at those and make sure that I answer your all's questions. Anything else? Anybody else got anything they want to share before you head into the rest of your Friday? Thanks, Dawn. We're trying. We try. Appreciate you all very much. All right, we will see you again soon. Reach out if we can help you with anything. Otherwise, keep doing your good work. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.